Hi, I'm Richard Rogers, and I absolutely hope that you enjoyed today's spiritual message. You know, we at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center are committed to helping people live better lives. We're going to provide you tools over and over, spiritual tools that allow you to live your best possible life. And if you want to leave a donation to continue to allow the work that we do to support other people just like you, we say thank you. Thank you for your generosity, because this ministry is committed to making the world a better place.
Okay, ready? So I want to do 4 weeks on Open Your Mind to Receive. It's a book by Catherine Ponder. Talked about it last week. This is going to be the foundation of what we're going to talk about for the next 4 weeks. Open Your Mind to Receive. So we're going to start tonight, and I say this with all due respect, right? And I really mean that. Do you have a God-given right to be as stuck as you want to be? Right? Do you have a God-given right to be as miserable as you want to be? Right. So if you want to just keep playing the same game that you've always played and play that game all the way out of this life experience, do you have a God-given right to play it that way? Sure, you betcha, right? It's your life. You get to do it any way you want to do it, right? And that's not why I'm here. Right? You understand that, right? One of my classmates when I was in seminary said that our job is to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. Well, I really resonate more with the afflicting the comfortable, right? That's kind of my bailiwick. That's kind of where I live, is in just being a little bit of a little tick or just something that kind of burrows into you and just won't let you go until you're so annoyed with me that you're willing to have a growth experience. How many of you have ever been so annoyed with me that it took that amount before you were willing to have a growth experience? Well, thank you. Then my job here is done, right? So I want to come after the place in you where you're stuck today and it looks normal. Right? I want to come after the place in your life where you've done this day before, and you've done it a week before, a month before. Maybe you've been doing it for the last 10 years or the last 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, and your life looks pretty much the way it's looked over and over again, and we don't call it a rut, but it's a rut, right? And the reason that I want to come after this is because God is infinite. And I believe that the purpose of life is to open our mind, our heart, our soul, to receive all the good that God is, and that should be an increasingly wonderful experience. And for most of us, it tends to be kind of a static experience, right? We get to the level of life that we're kind of comfortable with, and then we just keep playing that level over and over again. And as we get older, sometimes it actually diminishes a little bit, but we keep playing that level of life over and over again until the game's over. And I want to change that paradigm. I want to change the paradigm so that I actually want you more alive on your last day than on your first day. I want you to feel more blessed on your way out than on your way in. Does that make sense? And what I want you to see is our human tendency just to repeat what's comfortable, even when it hasn't been comfortable for years. Right? Has anybody living the same life, even though it's not, you don't have to raise your hand because we know, right? But I want to shake that up, because I think in a real way it denies our underlying belief that God is infinite. Because what it really says is God is enough, or almost enough. And I got just enough for me and mine, and I should be happy with that. And so I'm just going to try to keep a hold of just enough and play that out to the end of the game. And God help me that I have enough to the end of the game. right? I don't think that's inherently spiritual. I think it's inherently human. And what I want to challenge you tonight as we move into this 4-week series is I want to be an instigator, an agitator, a boat rocker. I want to make you uncomfortable. I want you to see the places where you've settled. I want to challenge you to blow up the container that you've given God and see if in blowing up the container you've given God, if we can create a much bigger container that would be much more fun to live in. And then when you get used to that container, I'm going to want to blow that one up. Right? Because if God is infinite, how many of you have ever thought that thought, that God is infinite? I mean, it's not hard to get in this room to get people to say, oh, I believe God is infinite. Well, how is that showing up in your life? Oh, it's not. But I really believe that God is infinite, but I've got enough. Right? Now, is it, and I'm not saying that having more money is more spiritual. Right? I don't want to shame people that are broke. Right? But what I want to challenge us to do is to look at the places where we've crystallized around a life that's too small, and I want to break that up so that we can see, is there more room for God? That could we actually live a more fully blessed life and every day become more fully blessed and every day become more fully blessed and actually go out, woohoo! Instead of thank God I came to the end before I ran out. Right? Does that make sense? All right, so here's where we're going. Here's the thought. Where in your life right now are you challenging the status quo? Right? Where in your life right now are you challenging what you're used to? Where in your life right now are you actually making more room for God to increase the blessings in your life? Because over and over again, what I want you to see is I think stable is lovely. It's wonderful to be stable. It's wonderful. But I want to have an expanding worldview. I want to have an expanding relationship with the divine. I want to have an expanding process where you're challenging yourself over and over and over again to say, am I making more room for God this week than I did last week? Do I feel more blessed this week than I did last week? Am I getting more and more satisfied, enjoyable about the infinite goodness of God and really laying hold of all the good that God has for me? Am I a living example of how good God is? Is my life and my soul reflecting how blessed I am? Because over and over again, what it tends to be is we get in our spot. And our spot is good, our spot is nice, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's our spot. I'm ready to blow it up. How many of you would be willing in the next 4 weeks to expand your ability to receive? Right? How many of you can see, and if you look back over your life, that you've actually made some steps and that you're more receptive to goodness and to life than you were a year ago or 10 years ago or 20 years, that you've already made some internal changes that allow you to be more blessed than you have been in the past? And if you look maybe at your parents or your grandparents, you can kind of see, well, I have taken some significant steps forward in where I came from. Anybody feel like that way? That when you look at your parents or your grandparents, that you're just living a bigger life than the way that you were raised. And my hope and my prayer for all of us is that we are continually moving the ball forward. That every generation is expanding in our capacity to be blessed. So that every generation is going beyond the limitations that we were brought into and saying, but that's not God. That's not spiritual. It's okay for me to have more than that. And how many of you know that you still are talking to the demons within you about how blessed you get to be and still be okay with that? You know what I mean by that? How many of you are still playing with the idea? I remember my aunt. My aunt was raised in a farming community in Central California, and my aunt, my uncle, he helped get me through school. Very generous. My uncle's still alive. Very generous, fabulous man. Gave me jobs all summer long so I could go through college, and they had a very lovely home. And the first time that her parents came to this lovely home, they walked through the home, and they said, her parents said to her, "I've never been in a home this nice, and I'm not going to start now." And they turned around, and they got in their car, and they drove back. And we say, oh, who would do that? Like, maybe not out loud. You know what I'm saying? But how many of you have places in your life where you know that you want to judge somebody for how good they have it, how blessed they are, and you think, well, that's not okay to be that blessed. It's okay to be as blessed as I am, but this is the line, right? Like that we get to go beyond that we're going to expand our mind, our heart, our soul to be wildly blessed. I am wildly blessed. Will you say that with me? I am wildly blessed. One more time. I am wildly blessed. Okay, let's go to the book. Why should I deliberately open my mind to receive? Because most of us have endured a narrow existence for no good reason. We've blocked our good from getting through to us in the process. There is nothing divine about a pinched existence. There is nothing divine about a narrow, limited way of life. It proves nothing but the foolishness, arrogance of a man who actually lives in a universe of lavish abundance. Anyone who leads a pinched, narrow existence is not expressing his true nature. He's only cheating himself. If it happens to you, there is nothing that if it's happened to you, there is nothing that we can do but change the reality that we've lived in. So how many of you can see areas in your life that if you tell yourself the truth, you're living a pinched existence? Anybody want to play? Right? And that's where we're going. Over and over again, that's where we're going. I want to expand the possibilities into a new way of being. Let's go to this one. And Catherine Ponder just shares in her writing, shares over and over again, real life examples of what she's talking about. A housewife said, although I've studied the power of positive, prosperous thinking for years and have great improvement in my life with this philosophy, I recently discovered something that I've been doing wrong. I've been saying that I live on a fixed income. I've been trying to bring more financial income into me in a certain way. I had not opened my mind to the possibility of an unlimited supply coming to me in unlimited ways. When I realized the mistake that I'd been making, I spoke these words over and over aloud for a long time. I am receiving now. I am receiving all the wealth that the universe has for me. Will you say that with me? I am receiving. I am receiving now. I am receiving all the wealth that the universe has for me. One more time together. I am receiving. I am receiving now. I am receiving all the wealth that the universe has for me. Okay, so if you get wildly blessed, if you get blessed more than you've ever been blessed before, does it take away from your neighbor? It doesn't. You become a shining star. You become an inspiration. I come over and I rub your head and say, I want that. Right? Because over and over and over again, what I want us to do is that we're all playing this game of living in an infinite universe. Some of us play it one way, some of us play it another. There's not a right way or wrong way. Because if you're 40 steps ahead of me in playing the game of an infinite universe, I want to challenge you to take 2 more steps in this 4 weeks. If you're 20 steps behind me in this game, I want you to take 4 new steps this week so that we learn to receive that which we long for. Because I guarantee our souls are hungry for greater good. Do you believe that? Okay. there's three areas in this first chapter she challenges to look at really receiving. And the first one is really understanding that the basis of receiving is based on what? Giving, right? The whole basis of receiving is based on the universal spiritual principle as you, so shall you receive. So the whole basis on receiving is that so what is the requirement to be a great giver? What is the requirement to be a great giver? Have something to give, right? Have a belief in abundance. You have to be a great giver, you have to believe that there's enough to go around. If you don't believe that there's enough to go around, you will never be a great giver because you're always afraid that there's not enough. So to be a great giver, you have to believe that God is infinite, that you have access to the infinite, and that you can give, and that it will be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, overflowing, will be placed in your lap. Because if you're acting out of fear, you'll never be a great giver. Right? You'll count pennies. You'll check to make sure everything's even Steven. You'll never be a great giver. So being a great giver, it actually depends on your ability to believe in the infinite goodness of God. Because if you don't believe in the infinite goodness of God, you're going to start holding back. And over again, as you hold back, it demonstrates a belief in lack. It demonstrates a fear that actually keeps you from greater levels of good, right? So as you give, so shall you receive. So the three areas that she talks about is the first one, giving to God. And the idea is that a portion, a tenth, whatever, the first that we receive goes to where we're spiritually fed. And the idea is that absolutely everything that I receive, a portion of everything I receive, did I say that clearly? A portion of everything I receive goes back to God. To acknowledge that God is the source of everything I have. A portion. Now, you can decide what your portion is, right? But a portion of everything you receive is an acknowledgement that God is your source and that it all comes from God. It's all God. So over and over again, what I want you to check almost on a regular basis is how often and how much, what portion are you giving to the divine? If it's all God's, what's God's share? If God's your business partner, what share is God's? And I want you just to decide for that. In this 4 weeks, I want you just to decide what portion of everything that you receive for the next 4 weeks is going to God, right? You get the rest. What portion is God? And you get to decide, well, there's not enough to go around. Okay, so do you want to continue to create that? Well, no. But God needs to give me first. Well, that's the whole premise in this thing, right? Is a portion of everything you receive goes back to the divine. And you get to decide what the portion is for the next 4 weeks. I'm just asking you to make a clear understanding what the portion is and play that game for the next 4 weeks and see how that works for you. So the first thing, everything that you receive, everything you receive. And I would invite you to write a journal. I want you to make an entry in your phone. Make it a memo. I want you to notice everything that you receive over the next 4 weeks, and a portion of all of that goes to God. And you don't have to play, but I'm going to invite you to play. I'm going to invite you to be very systematic. I don't want you to be unconscious giving. I want you to be very conscious that a portion, whatever it is, 5%, whatever it is for you, 2%, 1%, 0%, whatever it is, a portion goes to God. So the first thing that I'm going to invite you to look at in opening your mind to receive is I want you just to get clear what's God's share of your success. What's God's share of your business? Now, does God need it? No. God's got it. Who needs it? Us. We need to practice as you give, so shall you receive, over and over and over again. So when I was in ministerial school, when I was in seminary, I was kind of known as the tithing guy. I was like a big advocate of tithing because the tithing had turned around my life. There was a time in my life where I couldn't pay the minimum payments on my life, and I began to tithe, and tithing literally changed my life. So I was known as the tithing guy. So a few years after I graduated, there was a ministerial student who was just talking about the tithing's old school, that it's Old Testament, that Jesus didn't talk about tithing, so we don't really need to tithe because Jesus didn't really talk about it. And I said, okay, so let's talk about what Jesus did talk about. So they set up this luncheon for me, and I didn't know that they put us across the table from each other. Like it was a whole setup. Like they put us across the table for each other in this conversation, and then they brought up tithing, and he went off. And I'm trying not to go off. Have you ever had that experience where you just and so about 15 minutes into his statement, all heaven broke loose, right? Because I couldn't keep it anymore, right? I had to go, right? So I went and I said, so you're right. So Jesus didn't talk a lot about tithing, a percentage. He didn't talk about 10% tithing like they did in the Old Testament. He talked about 100%. And he said, what? And he said, well, what he talked about was giving it all away. He didn't talk about 10%. He talked about 100%. So if you want to be a follower of Jesus, have you given everything away and come to ministerial school? Because that's what his expectations were. If you don't want to do 10%, I say that's fine. Then let's go to 100% and see how you enjoy that, right? He was very quiet from that point on. Right? Now, do we have to do that? No. But I'm inviting you to just go play. Just play. Pick a percentage. And for the next 4 weeks, just play. See if it works for you. Now, first one is God. Second one, who's number 2 in the process? Us. It is us. We have to be willing on a daily basis to give to ourselves. And I want you to really see in the next 4 weeks how often on a daily basis you're not or you are giving to you. And I want you to really challenge yourself on a daily basis to give something to yourself. I don't care if it's a hot bath. I don't care if it's an iced tea. But I want you to be intentionally giving something to yourself. Because if you don't think you're worthy of giving to yourself, are you going to believe that you're worthy of receiving all the good that God has for you? And I don't think so. I think on a regular daily basis, you need to practice giving to yourself. And maybe giving to yourself is valeting your car instead of walking 100 miles from the other end of the parking lot. And you spend $3 or $5 tipping the valet. Or you go to instead of going for the greasy lunch, you give yourself a salad instead. Like, whatever it is, I want you to look on a daily basis how you're giving to you, and I want you to increase the giving to you. I want you to be giving to you every day. I want you to be able to write it down every day. This is what I gave to me. This is how I gave to myself today. I gave myself a bubble bath, or I gave myself a quiet 10 minutes when I normally would have been a crazy person. I actually gave myself meditation time. And I want you to actually begin to give to you on a daily basis so that you can establish a pattern of receiving. And then I want you to look at how you're giving to others. Okay? And this is where I want you to also spend some time, because we know that as we give, right, so shall we receive. Now, if you want to increase the good in your life, what do we have to do? We have to increase the giving, right? Now, this is the opportunity area, right? Now, when you give in greater ways, there's going to be a time gap before the universe figures out how to give back to you in the best possible way. There's just a time gap, right? If tomorrow or tonight you just start giving in extraordinary ways, it may not show up before you get home tonight. Right? There's a gap. Now, but this is your opportunity gap, right? This is your opportunity to be blessed. Now, what happens is that oftentimes we fill that up with resentment. Now, if I get resentful that I'm giving to you more than you're giving to me, do I get a blessing if I'm using that opportunity up with resentment? I don't get any blessing for that because I just spent it on resentment. Can you see people in situations that you've been giving to in a wonderful and amazing ways, but being resentful for doing it, and then wonder why you didn't get blessing for it because your resentment was so thick? That was the blessing. You took it as resentment. Right? Does everybody have a friend or a family member, a coworker, or a boss that you've given to and gotten so resentful that you didn't get the opportunity to be blessed? This was nothing. Right? So when you give in greater ways, you have to actually stand in faith that as you gave in greater ways, that it's going to come back to you, but it won't come back to you oftentimes from the person you gave it to. Because who do you work for? God. Right? I give here, I receive there. I give to you and I receive from the abundance of God. That I'm not worrying about keeping the ledger equal and fair. I'm worried about, am I giving in greater and greater ways? Okay? So does this make sense that I'm going to challenge you to give in greater ways for the next 4 weeks? Because you have to give in greater ways. Right? And I'm going to ask you to do it in a way that you don't get wound up about. That it's just a free gift. Okay, it's just a free gift. Now, the other thing that I want you to do is I want you to do a giving inventory. And I want you to make a list of all the ways you give. Well, I give to my kids, I give to my parents, I give at work, I give to my church, I give. I want you to make a list of all the ways you give. Right? Now, is all giving equal? No, it's not. Like, what I want you to really be looking at is I think some of us are over giving in areas that we shouldn't be giving at really at all anymore. Do some of you have some addictions to how you give, and you know that you're really supposed to trust that somebody else is going to do that or give in that way, and you keep doing it over and over again, even though it's not really your way to be giving? So I want you to really do a giving inventory. I want you to make a list of all the ways that you are giving right now, and I want you to really see which is the one that really expresses your spirit, your soul, the most. Which is the gift that you're giving that really calls forth the best of you? That's the one that I really want you to be intentional about expanding. So all the ways that you're giving it kind of in a less than ideal way, some of those you may actually give less. Because I want you to give in the way that brings out the spiritual best in you. Now, the last point, is I want you to see that in the universe, excellence is rewarded. Mediocrity is never rewarded. So I want you to really look at, of all the ways that you give, what are the ways where you do it with the highest level of excellence? Where you really just, boom, hit it out of the park. That over and over again, what I want you to see tonight is I want you to shatter the old containers. I want in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, the limitations, the old boxes, the old containers, I want you to shatter those so that God can bless you in a way that's extraordinary, that's over the top, that's overflowing, where you just get to be wildly, lavishly blessed. And then I want you to look at some of the ways that you're giving. And I want you to challenge yourself in the next 4 weeks to really see if you can expand your capacity to give to God, to yourself, and to others. And these 3, I want you to really look at outgiving the universe. Because the universe will catch up. It may not catch up tonight, but it's going to catch up. And I want you to give to the universe in the way that is excellent and expresses the best in your soul. All right, are you with me? Does this make sense? Let's pray. I want you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to the activity of God. That I want to challenge you tonight. I really do. I want to shake up all the places where you've accepted mediocrity, where you've accepted limitations, where you've accepted just enough. And I actually want to just blow those up. And I want to open a space for the overflowing goodness of God just to fill your life in greater and greater and greater ways so that you can be wildly blessed. And that you're picking those areas in your life that you can give to life. You can give to the moment. You can give to the universe. You can give to God in a way that's extraordinary. Truly extraordinary. And feel the infinite goodness of God coming back to you. That you're going to walk in grace. That you're going to know what it feels like to be wildly blessed. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks, and so it is. Amen.